welcome to the Life is Better With You in It podcast. And I will be your humble host, Jenn Cramer. I'm going to bring some friends on and have some good conversations about how to be better in the world. And one of my friends is Bob Goff. Hi, Bob.
Jenn, I am so glad to be on the podcast. Thanks for letting me hang out here.
You got it. You got it. So obviously, as I'm doing all this recon to ask you some good questions and, put some good out there into the world, your title is Chief Balloon Inflator. I love that. I love that.
Yes, that's actually sometimes people have all these big names and initials and all that. And I just feel like God makes confetti out of all of our diplomas and titles and all that to celebrate the poor. So it's just that would seem like a good one. Chief and Balloon Inflator.
I love it. I love it. And so part of my background is recruiting and finding amazing humans to fill jobs. And so I've been thinking about you a lot today and just in this whole market of career transitions, right? When I read like some of your books, you talk about transitioning from being a lawyer to an author speaker. And so tell our listeners today about that transition and what made you make the transition.
Yeah, it might be for a lot of listeners. It might be your parents' parents that had a career. They did one thing and they started and they got a gold watch after 40 years and retired and then quickly died after that. But I really like that the current version is that you could have multi-careers. So that's right. I was a lawyer by training. But before that, I got a degree in accounting of all that. Wow. If you could have ever imagined a person that's not an accountant and a green visor and a pocket protector, that would be me. And then I started an airline and I thought, why not? I'm a lawyer, we can figure it out. So I did that for the longest time. But while I was doing that, I was pursuing other things. I wanted to write a book. And so, and this isn't like for those of you that want to write books, you get about a nickel an hour, maybe a nickel a day. It's what it works out to write a book. But I really knew I had something bigger in mind than just sorting things out with people as a lawyer, adding things up as an accountant. I wanted to preserve things. And I thought what a really good way to do that would be to write a book. At least my wife and our kids would like it. And but having written a book, then people started calling to say, hey, will you speak at this thing or that thing, which actually cratered my career as a lawyer because I was never around anymore. I was always in Pittsburgh or Orlando or whatever. And then current version of that, I quit. I said, I'm not speaking anymore. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an airline owner. I'm not a author. What I am is I'm available to my family. And so now I'm like a grandpa and I want to say I'm still full of all kinds of mischief. And I've got this diplomatic immunity card from the State Department, which is another thing. I'm the consul for the Republic of Uganda. Is that crazy that you could be many, many things, how far we've come from our parents' parents, where there was a thing you did. And everybody listening, I just want you to do, what are the many things you could do? And nobody better as a guide than Jenn to say, she places people. I love that.
All day. Yeah. And even I think so much about transferable skills and what that means. And even for my own life, I'm like, am I just a recruiter or am I a baker? Am I a mom? Am I a wife? Am I going to be an author? I don't know, but Bob and Kim are coaching me.
Yes. Yes.
We'll see.
I've got the answer to that. Just off the way.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people now, they look at their lives and they're like, I want to do a whole bunch of different things. Is that okay? And so what would you tell somebody that's feeling, right? They're getting that feeling, that intuition that they need to make a career shift or they need to change something about their career. What would you tell somebody?
Yeah, one word, quit. I never took a job when I had these many jobs without, on the day that I got the job, I would write my resignation letter. I would address it to my new boss. I just got their name. I would put a stamp on it and I'd give it to my wife. And I'd say, if this job ever gets in between me and you or me and Jesus, you just mail that thing in. You don't even need to tell me. I'll find out. Wasn't that great? And then if I did get
Wow.
canned, and that I got canned more than tuna, like, but there's something beautiful about just being the next version of you. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us have our eyes on the rearview mirror, and we're going to spend a whole lot more time in our future than we have in our past. And so I want to say, who's the next iteration, the next humblest version of me, the next humblest version of Jenn? And I
Oh, I
think if we
love that.
do that, what it'll take, if you think of a triangle, um, the one bottom corner of this like pyramid shaped triangle, these would be all your capabilities. And so that would be being a lawyer or knowing how to spell cat or whatever it is. These are my capabilities. Then at the pointy end of the triangle, like the top of the pyramid, this is the life you want to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like butlers and waiters and stuff. I mean like the cadence between free time and fun and
Yeah.
rest and unplanned. And then the bottom, that last corner, would be the legacy you want to leave. And so I think a lot of people in their 20s and 30s are spending time in their capabilities, which is great. I think that's a great idea. But I think we need to start thinking more about lifestyle. And that's been this generation,
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle and legacy. And that's my generation. So don't wait till you're 64 to start thinking about your legacy. Start thinking now, what am I going to leave behind? And I find writing books very tedious, but someday I'm going to end up in a jar, and this is what's going to be leaning up against it.
Mm-hmm. Also, I
Bob's in
find
there.
writing tedious
Yeah.
too.
Yes. And so the whole idea is that while it's tedious, I go, but it's really purposeful because
Mm-hmm.
for my kids, if they were interested, they would know one worldview. Just like I thought, I'm not trying to talk them in or out of anything. I hope writing is a tap on the shoulder to remind people who they already are.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I when you talk about this whole pyramid and the legacy, so when I talk to candidates, right? That's my day job. Talk to and interview people all day long. And when I say the question, what's really important to you in your next role? 9 out of 10 times that answer is work-life balance. And so then when I dig deeper, because I started getting that question more, work-life balance, work-life balance. And I'm like, that's what does that mean? Because what I'm learning is that if I ask the next question, what does that mean to you? Every single answer is different. And so I find now more than ever, more than probably my 7 years of talking to candidates, that they are striving for a work-life balance, but it may mean something totally different to them. Like I will talk to one person who will say, I just don't want to travel anymore. Monday through Friday, I want to be like, go to a job and then come home. I don't want to travel for weeks at a time and then come back. Others will say, I need to take breaks throughout the day to pick up my kids. And then I want to be able to log back in at night, which is a lot of sometimes what I do. Mine's more early in the morning. But when people come to you and they're like, hey, Bob, balance though, like, okay, so we're gonna quit our jobs. Okay, Bob wants us to quit, so just to the listeners, Bob wants you to quit your job. Next thing is how do you find that balance? And is balance actually the word? Because I don't think it's the word, and I don't think it's harmony, because harmony feels like Snow White and there's birds, but really it's like kids screaming in the background for me.
Yeah, I remember writing about that once, and I remember recalling a time younger when I was spending so much time trying to find balance. I felt like I
Mm,
tipped over. And so it was just this elusive thing like balance, balance, balance. And so what I've been looking for is meaning and purpose. So most people, I would say, that get to talk to you are looking for purposeful work. They want to do
mhm.
something that matters. They need to understand the bigger arc of why that matters. And I think there's something purposeful for the guy planting the seed and the farmer that's tending to the seed and the person that's bagging the cabbage and the person that's like, so everybody's got some role in this, but not everybody finds purpose in what they do. And if we can find purposeful work and you can make seemingly tedious work like us in writing
Mhm.
very purposeful so that it didn't need to be binary. It's like either purposeful or it's not. There is balance in my life, there isn't balance in my life. But instead to see this continuum, and I want to like tend towards purpose and meaning and lasting. I think there was a time earlier when I was thinking, will it work? And
Yeah.
now I'm thinking, will it last? And that's an important distinction. As soon as you start saying that what I'm doing is part of something that's lasting, and I don't need to have my face on the side of a hill in the Dakotas to make it lasting, but that it's contributing to something that really has a longer arc. And so that for an employer is important to say, this is why this matters, what we're doing. Like, we're in the business of encouraging people. We're going to push back against cynicism in the world, but we're not going to call it out or make a big deal or fashion ourselves as the champion. But instead, to just say the work we're doing is pushing back against cynicism and hopelessness in the world. And so we're going to do it in big and small ways, hopefully both, a little of both.
Awesome.
If you have that arc, then you're really in the right spot in your job. If you're carrying mail, if you're a plumber, if you're a physician, like whatever it is, stay at home mom or dad, but finding purpose and understanding the bigger arc of what you're participating in.
What would you tell someone? What is one thing that a listener could do today to maybe figure out what their purpose is? And obviously, like, that's a huge answer, right? I mean, I think some people, it could take you 10 seconds and they're like, yep, I know exactly what I want to chase. This is what I'm going to chase. But for some people who may not know what their purpose is, what is one thing that you would tell them to explore that might give them some, at least, push in the right direction, right? As we act as their sage or their guide, what would we tell them?
Yeah, there's a friend, Greg McKeown, that wrote a great book called Essentialism a number of years ago. And the premise of his book, I can save you $17. The premise of the book is that we think in terms of priorities, like plural. And he said, no, a priority is singular, like you have the thing that is above all other things. That is your priority. And so Greg ended up spending a lot of time focused on this one thing and I don't know if that was achieved the way he was hoping or not, but he spent a lot of things. And while we're really good friends, I have a really different perspective on that. I want to go with like many things at once. It's like, I would want to bet on every horse in the race. And then if I could, really bet on the one that's out in front, like at the end. So find, for me, and everybody's different, I want to launch 5 different things. And then whatever one is working, I want to spend more time on that. And the one that isn't working, I don't want to spend time on that. So it's like going with your fast ponies. So what I would say is, for a person looking for purpose, go launch the 5 things that you want to do. They say, I'm going to start writing. I'm going to make myself available for speaking. I'm going to start studying like animal husbandry. I'm going to, whatever it is. And then the ones that are working, do more of that. And the ones that aren't, do less of that. I'm not smart enough to figure out why it's working or why it's not working, but I'm smart enough to know it is working or it isn't. So even as we sit right now, I planted a vineyard, 50,000 bottles a year. I don't drink wine. I don't even like the taste. I'm a Dr. Pepper guy, but I was just curious. And I think, I don't know, maybe it'll work. At the same time, I started raising. My address. I know. I will back that truck up. Right. At the same time, I started raising cattle. I didn't know if it would work or not. And it turns out when they visit with each other, you end up with more cattle. But then I found out the only kind of cattle I like are these Scottish Highlands fuzzy cows. You know, they have bangs and long hair. Yeah. So I got rid of all the other ones are going away today, and I'm just doing fuzzy cows. So it's in the process of sorting that out. Now, that doesn't make me a, what's that, the name for the sommelier? Because I haven't had my second glass of wine because the first one didn't work out. So it doesn't make me a sommelier because I got a vineyard. It makes me curious. It doesn't make me a rancher because I got a couple cattle, but it made me curious enough to like start refining it and seeing like people really warm up to those Scottish Highlands and the emotional trauma kinds of stuff that happens out at the place. Oh, there's another one. We have a retreat center. So I wasn't looking for a retreat center until I bought a retreat center. So can you see how you go like launch 5 or 6 or 7 things and then see which ones are working? And the ones that are working, man, try to crack the code about why, but just invest heavily in those things.
Yeah, I think there's like, so we've talked about this career and like what kind of made you pivot. And now that you've pivoted, where are you now and what does that look like for you? And then we've talked about this thing of balance and just trying to find, instead of balance, right? Because I don't like that word. I don't like harmony either. Finding purpose, right? We want them to find purpose and meaning. But then you talk about being curious. And so for me, going out on my own last year, I wanted to try all the things. I've talked about like essentially putting spaghetti on the wall to say, hey, I'm going to try to recruit for this kind of role. I'm going to try to do this line of work. I'm going to
Yeah.
maybe even write a workbook, which I did. I wrote like this job search workbook where it was trying to prep people for an interview to have a great conversation, because I think an interview is a good conversation. So, you know, there is, I think, a stigma about being curious and trying things to be curious. And so I definitely, when you say like, I didn't want to buy a vineyard till I bought a vineyard, I'm like, oh yeah, like that makes sense, because you want to be curious about the world around you. But the stigma is that, well, if that fails, right? So if your vineyard lights on fire and then it's over, is that a failure?
It sounds like an insurance claim to me. I think a bad day is leukemia. And I've got some friends that are having some really bad days. So having one of my ideas not work, that isn't a bad day. That's just Tuesday. And then there's Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and a long weekend. And so what I want to do is, there's an underlying belief that we could fail trying rather than fail watching. And I think there's a lot of people that fail watching. In other words, they had a beautiful idea and ambition that never would have occurred to me. But they never really kind of got to, because they were either waiting for permission from somebody, and they just don't believe they have permission. They're waiting for approval from some people. They're trying to build consensus around the idea rather than building a kingdom around the idea. Or they're waiting for just the perfect time to do it, instead of just saying like, I need to just like the perfect time. But this ain't the Olympics. There's no judge that's holding up a 10. And if they were a Russian judge, nobody would believe them anyway. So what I'd want to do is, I'd say, like, I'm not trying to nail this thing like the Olympics. I'm trying to live it like it's my life. And so that makes me an omnivore. I want to eat a little of everything. When you go to the buffet, Jenn, do you take a little this and a little that, or do you just pile up on one thing?
Oh, I want to try a little bit of everything.
I'm with
Everything. I like
you.
all of this. Every single, like if it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I want a little of each meal.
Yes. So why wouldn't we do that when it comes to your career? Do some like kind of sampler plate. Let me try many things. And the things that I like, it's just another way of saying that's a win. Let's do more of that. And the things that you're just not into, you like, oh, yuck. And then gefilte fish, like not a fan. And so to say, I'm just not going to do that. And then not only focusing on your stuff, but then let's go find some other people and find purpose in helping them achieve their ambitions. Like, don't just go to your church, go to a synagogue, go to a mosque, let's go to all these places and say, is there any way that I could help you with making some progress? It's called the title in the Benedictine tradition. It was a porter. Yeah. And a porter would go to the gate every morning and say, how can I help you on your way? Isn't that beautiful? I always thought a porter was like a Sherpa. They carried my latte machine up Everest. Yeah. But a porter is somebody that says, how can I help you on your way? Wouldn't that be a great way, and an unlikely, beautiful way, that you find your ambition by helping other people find theirs? I mean, that's a description of what you do, Jenn. You just help people find their ambition.
Talking to my son, he's 8, and he was like, what is your job? Like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, my job is to help other people find jobs. And he's like, I'm like, I know, I didn't even know it was a thing. Like, I didn't know you could be a recruiter, right? I didn't know you could help people find jobs. But me helping others find their calling or find that next perfect move is like my jam. And then when they accept the offer, that is like the best news of the day. And so I love helping people to find whatever it is that's next for them. And what I keep running into is people who talk about like this, like work-life balance, or they're saying, I'm in the middle of a career transition. And so it's maybe the times. it's maybe COVID. I think we're more thinking about that like legacy, like, right? I'm thinking about that legacy. I'm thinking about what I want to leave behind for my boys and what that looks like to be a mom who owns her own, right, scrappy startup business, is doing recruiting all day long.
Yeah. So a lot of times people have kind of fallen out of love with the thing that they're doing. It was a great job the day you got it, but the whole idea is that we're new creations, constantly changing. Like old Bob's on the bus. Like every morning, new Bob wakes up and he gets to say, okay, so what am I about today? And many things will be the same. It doesn't mean all things need to be the same. And if you lose your car keys, you think to yourself, where was the last place I remember seeing them? And so let's say you're in a job and you're stuck. I'd say, where was the last place I felt joy? Where did I see my joy? Where was the last place I felt purposeful? And then go return to those places. Doesn't need to be to that job, but it might be giving you an indicator, like just like this is your happy place. This is where you thrive. So instead of saying here's the 9 things I don't like about this job, I would say these are the 3 places I can remember feeling most purposeful and happy and connected, and that I was doing meaningful work, and say like, wow, let's follow that trail of breadcrumbs.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think finding that meaning and that purpose in a world that does feel very loud and right, and everybody does have an opinion because social media makes it so, and that everyone can have an opinion about how we portray ourselves, what our jobs are, what that means. And like, we're trying to compartmentalize what that looks like. And I want to leave listeners with this note of being curious. And I want to land our plane on this conversation today of being curious and being able to say, let's find 2 to 3 things that we can go throw spaghetti on the wall with. And they may not stick. And I don't think the point is that it sticks. I think the point is that you go try it and go, all right, I'm going to do more of that, or I'm going to just throw that one in the garbage.
Yeah. When you get the UPS truck comes and it leaves you that note, sorry, we missed you. And we still have your package, like holding it hostage.
Yeah, they are.
Did you know that UPS trucks only turn right? They never turn left. Is that crazy? Yeah, wow. They only turn right because they plan the routes so they never have to cross traffic. Because if they have to go left, they have to wait for cars to pass before they turn. So they only go right. So if I get one of those stickies, I just get in the car and make a right at every corner until I find them. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So being curious can be really helpful. Yeah. But the next step up from that is to say to the UPS driver, can I ride along? Like you can box me up if you need to, but like, could I ride along and see? And then if you're thinking about a ride along, maybe it could be with a police officer. Maybe, I don't know, you could knock off a liquor store and be in the back seat, or you could just be curious and stay in the front seat. And so I teach a class at San Quentin, and I've been teaching it for, gosh, a bigger part of a decade. And the reason I was just curious. And so then all of a sudden, a guy that makes a really famous brand of guitars, he was just curious about what we were doing. And he donated a dozen of these, like, I can't afford one of them, guitars to just these guys. Because he was curious about what was going on. And then the warden hears about this. And so it's just metastasizes in this beautiful way. So I would say if you're curious about things and you're actually listening to what people are asking for, you'll know what to do. Can I give you one tip? I don't know if this will ever help one of your person's looking for a job, but if I have an opening, there'll be a bunch of people that apply, and then it gets whinnied down to like 10 people. And then I get on the phone with all 10. And somewhere in the conversation, I'll say, it's so great to talk, but I'm having the weirdest day. Been trying to find a 2-pound eggplant. I can't find it anywhere. And then we'll talk about the job and the day and the weather and sports and all that. And out of 10 people, there'll be one person that'll go to the market and send over a messenger with a bag. And if inside is an eggplant, we put it on the mail scale. If it weighs 2 pounds, they're hired. Because if people are listening for you for what you want, you don't have to tell them what to do. So I would just say, like, find those things, be the person that's actually listening for what somebody wants, and then get out ahead of it. And if they really want their car washed, get a sponge. Like that kind of thing. It's not just curiosity, it's curiosity wed with some action. Is like, that's a person that's a winning combination.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to be thinking about the eggplant tomorrow.
Don't you think? Yeah, totally.
Well, listeners, it's been amazing. And I just want to let you know that life is really better with you in it. And you can go and buy an eggplant today that's 2 pounds. So go
Come
be
on.
curious, go explore the world. And until next time.
Oh, thanks, Jenn. See ya.
Bye, Bob.